Hello everyone, Darth here, and welcome back to another actually, I guess this one isn't overly analytical. In fact, I don't really have a full explanation, and I'm hoping you guys can help me come up with one. Most people have noticed that WandaVision is pretty blatantly paying homage to older classic TV shows. We started off in the 1950s, with each episode skipping us ahead another decade. We've seen them draw inspiration from I Love Lucy, The Dick Van Dyke Show, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, The Brady Bunch, Full House. And considering how brief some of the references are, there could be dozens of more shows that I've never even picked up on. But I have a bigger, more fundamental question, one that I've focused on many times in my videos. Why? Why is this what Disney decided to do as their introduction to the Marvel streaming universe? Because this is quite a daring choice. There is very little heroic action. As far as Marvel movies go, this is a 180 from superhero action film to comedy drama. Think about it, if you're under the age of 35, how many people have actually seen any of the shows that WandaVision is referencing? How many young people have seen a show in black and white, formatted in 4:3 instead of a 16:9 widescreen? Now this led me to the question, how big is the Marvel fan base, broken down by age? Well, look at this graph. The gray bar represents people ages 55 or older. The greenish-blackish bar represents people ages 35 to 54, and the blue bar represents people ages 18 to 34. Just look at the numbers. People under the age of 35 are definitely the sweet spot that Disney would want to hit. And there's millions of fans under the age of 18 that aren't even represented here. So, why did they decide to make a superhero show based almost entirely around the drama of character and plot development instead of action? Think about all the Marvel movies we've seen so far. They generally start with a fight that leads to some plot development that leads to another fight, which leads to more plot development culminating in a final fight. But WandaVision is basically nothing but talking. It's almost 100% plot development, with none of the superhero action scenes we specifically come to the MCU to see. Why did they decide to make this show? This question has been bugging me non-stop since the very first episode. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier would have been a far safer series to have as their first foray into streaming. With WandaVision, their target audience obviously isn't the younger crowd that constitutes a majority of their fan base. The younger crowd gets none of the references and may even be low-key angry at being forced to watch something in black and white like their great-great-grandparents had to. This show was created specifically to appeal to this age group, the 35 to 54-year-olds. They literally created an amalgamation of things that a 35-year-old would be missing in the world right now. The hype of Marvel at its peak combined with the reruns that we watched as kids of old TV shows that depicted and remind us of the simpler, happier times of our youth. And I realized, I'm not sure I care to watch this show over and over like I want to with most Marvel films. But as I am watching, it probably means more to me than the movies do, because of how they're manipulating me. As I'm watching, part of me is remembering when I was 10, on summer vacation and watching reruns of Bewitched with my brother. I'm remembering when our family liked sitting around watching these sitcoms together. My nostalgia is being used to manipulate me. But the interesting thing is that manipulation isn't inherently a negative thing.
I came in here to get a club soda. Right now, I am drinking probably the best scotch I've had in years. Did you trick me? Am I suffering?
WandaVision manipulates us to like the show by making the intended demographic recall the nostalgia of our youth. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. The show is still good, the writing is very engaging and enjoyable, the casting and acting seem perfect. WandaVision manipulated us to get us through the door, to get us involved in the story, but then they delivered. Just like in this example, we were delivered something we had never even asked for, something we never would have said that we wanted when we walked through the doors of this fandom. This manipulation doesn't insult us because they gave us something delicious that we enjoyed. But they could so easily have failed to deliver. The Star Wars sequel trilogy is a textbook example of how a film studio attempted and failed to use fan nostalgia as a manipulative device. Because here's what they don't seem to understand: nostalgia is tied directly to our internal sense of self. One of my absolute favorite places in the world was my grandparents' house in Florida. My memory is abhorrent on the best of days, but I remember their neighborhood. I remember their street. I remember that house, that pool, that backyard. I remember how happy my brother and I were being carefree kids before jobs and bills took over our lives. I vividly remember how happy I was to visit my grandparents, and the thought that that house is different now, that my grandparents are dead, that I'll never go back to those happy times. Those thoughts are devastating, because my nostalgia is directly tied to feeling happy. This is the single biggest reason that the Star Wars sequel trilogy failed in incorporating the original cast members. They manipulated us using nostalgia, and then instead of delivering us something unexpected and delicious, instead they gave us failure.
Leia.
Don't do that.
Do what?
Anything.
We went into the sequel trilogy expecting to feel as happy seeing Luke as we did back in 1983. On some unconscious level, we expected that same childlike joy and wonder. So when we are presented with a version of that character who is a coward, who runs away and abandons his friends, how could we possibly accept that the happiness we felt as children is now gone? Try to imagine all the favorite places you played as a child are now gone. Try to imagine all of your best friends were only there to steal from you. This is what Star Wars gave us. It has taken the pure happiness of our nostalgia for the original films and replaced that love with something caustic that we can't help but reject. I will never be able to fully accept the fact that my grandparents' house is gone. It is intrinsically linked to my childhood, and therefore to my inner sense of self, in a way that I probably will never be able to break. When I get on Google Maps and look at pictures of that neighborhood, of that house now, I say this is wrong. They tore everything up, they repainted everything. This isn't what I remember. Because the reality we are presented with has to mesh with our nostalgic memories of what originally made us fans. And if they manipulate our beloved nostalgic memories and then don't deliver, our internal sense of self is damaged in a far deeper way than most people realize. If nostalgic references are handled properly, they can be a beautiful thing. They can help us more quickly and easily connect with characters and be more immersed in the story. But if the nostalgia isn't handled very carefully, a film risks having its audience be irreparably damaged, as they are unable to mentally hold two conflicting versions of those characters. This is why the MCU will never make a version of Steve Rogers who considers killing a child. This is why people cried when they saw the real Luke on screen again. This is why my grandparents' house will always be there, exactly as I remember it. If you're interested in where I got this research, check out this audiobook, Effective Communication Skills by Dalton Kehoe. There's a link down in the description. It is extremely long, but it's also extremely worth it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.